Good morning. Welcome to Cruising into the Void. I am Nagy. Here with me always is Steelhead Fish himself. How are we doing this fine morning?
We're doing well, brother. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling loose. I'm feeling free. And I'm really excited about today's episode because we get to tell you guys about how Nagy and I got really, really good at killing time.
Yeah, lots of downtime. It was a weird mix of downtime, but also not because there's so much going around. But the times where you're like, I don't have work, there's no party. What do I need to be doing right now? And
and
just not twiddling your thumbs.
just covering how we did life every day. Like how we got groceries, when did we do laundry, and all the different things that we made to make that happen. So, if you're ready, I think the people are ready. Let's let them know how it goes. So when we weren't working on the cruise, when we were on the cruise ships, but we weren't working, we had to somehow figure out how to kill time on this giant tin can because it's not. I don't know if a lot of people think that when we stop working, we go downstairs and there's a magical portal back to our house, and we go and then we sleep, and once we're done sleeping we jump back into the portal and we come back to work and we start again.
Yeah.
No, we actually live like in the lower thirds of the ship.
I
Quarter.
think a lot of people think that there is a portal that separates. And I mean, that's the power of cruise ships. They design them specifically that you are in this luxurious world.
Yeah.
And when you get a peek behind the curtain and you're like, what's Oz doing back there? You're like, oh, it's very utilitarian, like, colored, white painted things. And we are going back there. It is the kind of that mystery world of the below deck things. And I think that TV show has completely ruined trying to explain real life to people. Like, oh my God, is it like below deck? I'm like, yes. And absolutely not. The amount of drama that they do where, like, I was like, dude, I could have applied for that and they would have denied me because I had too much experience, especially with like customer service, where I was talking to a friend last night and she's like, yeah, I thought about it, but I had no experience with any of that. They're like, yeah, that's perfect. She's like, yeah, but I like will cry if someone yells at me. They're like, even better. That is what we want. That is the drama. Like, they're going out and getting hammered on land, then there's the drama of them being drunk and hungover. You're like, well, in real life, you get fired for that.
Well, we did have our fair share of that, but I would not say it is as common as that show made it seem. No, we definitely had our own drama and fun bits. The love circles got pretty intense and fun sometimes.
It absolutely could be a reality TV show, but the months that the camera crews are like, what's going on? You're like, nothing. People are just vibing. There's no drama. Like, it's just real life sometimes just flows. And then other times you're like, dude, that guy slept with like 4 people and 2 dudes. Like, there is a lot of stuff going around right now. Like,
oh man, it was great. I remember, so hard drive parties, back to what we were saying, hard drive parties were when we all got together. So one thing is we didn't get new movies that came out on the ship. So when you guys got them in theaters, we didn't get them for months until afterwards. So a lot of people would have a bunch of movies saved up on their hard drives over time of everything. And so we would go to different parties and copy and save movies off of everybody's hard drive. So you would just sit in a circle and basically pass them to the left and go around in circles taking movies off of each other's discs.
AO was definitely clutch for, the new Pixars are coming out. Like, hey, AO, you guys got them? Like, everybody's like, yup. Like, all right, cool. We're going to go up there after hours, grab these. Casts were so clutch for getting like all the new Marvel movies. And then you kind of find the stagehands and the black shirts that got more like artsy or like real movies. Like, hey, I don't want some blockbuster. Can I get something that's got a little bit of depth? Like, I don't want Disney. I don't want Marvel. There's a lot of other movies out right now. Or the like esoteric ones. Like, yo, do you have Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels? They're like, yeah, definitely.
Clockwork Orange.
Like, yeah, the good one. Yeah.
Watched it three times last week. Here you go.
Yeah, it's sitting in the crew cafe or like up in the lounges, and you're just kicking it, and you're kind of socializing because it's like, all right, copy paste. That's gonna take. Oh, this is HD, 14 minutes, and then you put another one like, oh, just made it 30 minutes. Crap! Like, you want to play some ping pong?
And you're just twiddling your thumbs. Yeah. Oh man, those were fun. But the other thing was we had crew channels on our TVs. So Royal Caribbean had all these movies that you guys could buy and purchase that we got to watch for free.
Yeah. A very mini Netflix.
Yeah, and let me tell you, the cool part about it is sometimes it had a good library. They had some that you're like, man, we're watching a bunch of these. But then they also had other ones that were like, you just couldn't even turn it on. You're like, what are these selections?
It would be like, why are there only 4 movies? And we talked to broadcast, like, yeah, we're getting ready to do it, but you're gonna have to just wait till we get the clearance to upload. He's like, I've got 40 movies in the queue, but I just need the clearance from licensing and things like that. You're like, okay, that's why we've got our hard drives.
Exactly.
But we would do movie nights. I think movie nights, especially after Hard Drive Party, definitely led to the date nights.
Okay.
And I think we had like 2 different types. The main one that Jared and I would do for date night would be, that day where you don't have doors, you don't have evening night activities, you have the night off, and you'd look at your schedule, you'd be like, yo, let's go make a reservation for, we love sushi, so we would always go to Izumi. We never did like chops or things like that unless it was a group thing. So you'd kind of compare schedules, be like, yo, Fish, when are you off? Elise, when are you off? Steve, when are you off? Jake's, when are you off? Like, when can we get a night? Like, all right, let's get like 6 guys and we're just going to go bomb chops.
Yeah.
And super much going with an ethnicity where the waiters are that same ethnicity. Like when they're the same nationality, we'd be like, I guess I'm going to get this and this. And the guy'd be like, he'd just take the menus and be like, you're good. I'd be like, what does that mean? And they'd speak in whatever language. And the guy or girl would just be like, we got you. And then they just put all the food on the table. And you got to try and eat just everything.
I think now is a great time for us to finally explain to everybody what the paisano effect is. Because this is a real thing. Like people refer to this, all right? I remember one time I used to ride on the bikes after hours, and one of the fitness people did not like me doing it. He hated it. And I'm like, but I'm taking care of him. I'm wiping him down. Like, I'm doing my thing, just whatever. And he came up and he yelled at me, and he was like, I wouldn't even let my paisanos do that. And I'm like, but what does that even mean? You're like, of course he was Filipino, but which are some of the stronger ones.
Small background. Paisano is, I believe, Tagalog term. So Filipino term meaning like brother, but it's like nationalism.
So
same country.
It is from the Italian term, which means countryman.
I was really close then.
Yep. Paisano means country, kind of like countryman in Italian.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes from.
But it was a paisa. Paisa! And it was that effect that I will say we never got. Because Americans, when it comes to sports, things like that, like, damn proud to be an American. When you got on ships, you're like, oh, dude, you're from the States? Like, yeah. Oh. Like, oh, okay. And then you see other people like, oh my God, you're also from South Africa? We're going to go disappear for weeks and then talk to only each other. Like, okay, respect.
Well, and I get it to some extent, right, as we got older. And this was actually proved American culture, is that we would sell each other out in a heartbeat for whatever, right? Whatever is, if it's lust, if it's greed, if it's gluttony, you would sell out in a heartbeat to whoever it is.
Who messed this up? Yeah, that was Fish. Yes, the servants who messed that up. Like, I've never seen this before in my life. I've never seen these guys before, like, in my life. Like, bro, all right, respect.
But I get for other countries, and this is one thing that I think you and I bonded over a little bit more that some people didn't, as what American-wise, is the idea of that's your kind of close sense to home. You
Yeah.
referenced it before and said, hey, this is the only time I actually get to speak Afrikaans because there's 7 of us here from South Africa. So
Right.
this is the language I speak all the time when I'm home.
The
So
mother
I want to
tongue.
go speak that and just, it makes me feel more comfortable. And you and I got
Right.
that out of that. We had very similar personalities and grew up in similar cultures. And you saw that throughout the Paisanos a lot more, especially in the terribly small countries like the Filipinos or the Mauritians or Serbians. And when those countries were smaller in comparison, I think you got a lot more of it as well.
Right. And I mean, I don't know for you. For me, it was I never lost that sense of home because again, you're cruising so much
Hmm.
that the majority of populations are Americans anyway. So
Yeah.
we never had that separation of a language barrier or other things like that because everybody was speaking English. They're from the States anyway.
Hmm.
People are walking up wearing, especially I could spot a Colorado flag on a hat that's like, the size of a quarter across the ship. And, otherwise people are always rocking Texas or they're rocking their state flag somewhere. So you're
Hmm.
kind of like, all right, I'm always around the States versus like you said, these smaller countries are like, dude, I haven't seen someone from my country in weeks.
Yeah. And so I think with that, I know for me especially, I started to lose it. I had that feeling in England because when
Okay.
you get off, even though they spoke English, it was a completely different culture. It is
Yep.
not even close to the same thing. And you notice that when you're walking through, like, one of my favorite home ports was Southampton. And the reason for that is because they had a mall that was about 2 miles away and you could get whatever you wanted, right? Anything and everything you needed, you could get at that mall. But you would
Right.
notice all the cultural differences in that, like, when you went to go buy your laundry little, like, Tide Pods, they would come in a very differently shaped container and the
Right.
pods would actually look a little different. And then when you're walking by, there's no football store. There's a football store.
Right.
And everybody's losing their minds over the Southampton Saints in that store. And you're like, part of me feels like I need to go buy something, but like I've never watched these guys play ever in my life.
Right.
Like it was. So I understand that kind of idea of it, and I think it could almost be even more foreign when you're in places that don't speak your culture or don't speak your language. Because I was out of Barcelona and where it was 2 turnaround ports. Was it Barcelona and Civitavecchia? Are those both turnaround? Yeah. So it was there, but I was only there for a couple of weeks, so I didn't get that feeling there. But I remembered less people on those ships spoke English because everybody was European.
Right.
So
Spanish or
I could
Italian.
definitely see where that would be a calling or a safe space for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. But back to it for date nights anyway, it was clutch to have a hookup. Like when Jared and I would go, let's say we did go a couple times to Chops or Giovanni's or things like that, and you just like ordered and you got your food, you're like, why is there so little? Like, oh, this is all we ordered. Like, yeah, we don't know any of the waiters. We didn't bring the right people versus like
Exactly.
we had a girl, Paris, and she was Greek.
Hmm.
And that was another very kind of minority, super minority country. And she ran in, she goes in and she is the most crazy, bubbly, outgoing personality. Like literally gets up and goes into the kitchen and talks to the chef while we're all sitting down at dinner.
Yep.
We're like, is she allowed to do that? And she comes out like 30 minutes later, just all smiles, even bigger than normal. She's like, guys, we're good. And just, they almost had to put like another table down for like 5 of us because there was so much food that this guy just kept whipping up food for us of everything.
Hmm.
We like food, drinks, like in the middle of dinner, you got another appetizer and you're like, okay, thank you. Like, definitely gonna need to take some laps on the track after this meal because, or you're rolling me out of here.
Yeah, but you're right. I remember I had one lady in my muster station, and she came in and okay, so this particular muster station, your job is to just make sure everybody's sitting in their seat and watching the TV. You have a very important job once the show or if anything emergency was actually happening. You have to keep all these people under control. But during drills, it's completely boring. So she always showed up late, and I scanned her in late, and I took care of her. And every time I went to a restaurant, she was like, "I got you, baby." Half my shit would be comped gone because I just made sure she could show up to drill late.
Right. Those are the small effects, that would help. Or like, you start talking to the waiter, like, "Yo, you guys done the flow rider?" Like, "Yo, come up next weekend." And then you're like, "Hey, where's our bill?" They're like, "It's gone." You're like, "All right, we'll see you guys next weekend." Like,
Yeah, those were the other ones, man. Those were fun. But then you also had date night where it was like you would go to Central Park and it was just you and Jera. What were those date
yeah.
nights like?
So yeah, most of it was if we would go out, we might even say like, "Hey, let's go get," like, again, Azumi was our go-to. Highly recommend. Always try the Fudumaki because it's just a monster stash of rolls and things like that. Just that is the crew recommendation is the Fudumaki from Azumi. But it'd be like
Throw it down.
we'd go up, yeah, and then get like place an order, and then Jira would always go get chocolate martinis from the Schooner Bar, and I'd get an old fashioned, and then yeah, just like walking Central Park because it's like you're back around trees. It's sort of like you get to take that nighttime stroll while you're on board to kind of again break that psych like that psychic barrier that like, oh, we're on a ship. When you take a little stroll through Central Park, you're just taking a couple laps. Again, the people watching, you get to see the mix of deeply in love, fueled by fire kind of like couples, or like the ones that are just sitting there having beer and wine, like staring at the wall because they're just zonked and they're fried, red burned, and you're like, the whole spectrum of vacationers. But yeah, just like those little strolls to just break that rhythm of ships. But I think more often than not, we would even kind of do that, but like I think I surprised Jera one year. I surprised her on our anniversary. I got off work early and I kept calling to see where she was. And I went and got a Zumi, went and got a bottle of wine, set it all up in our cabin. So we had the couples cabin, so bunk bed versus couple cabin. We'll get into in a second, but spread out all the sushi on the countertop, cleaned the cabin. So she had that as a bonus of like, yeah, I cleaned for you too. And then she walked in and there was the wine poured, all the sushi out, and Lord of the Rings fired up on the computer, ready to go. Because I think besides getting dressed up for date night, the other thing was just like getting home from work and just like taking off your pants and your shirt and just chilling, being like, okay, I'm not in any uniform. I don't want, as comfortable as athletic clothes, I don't want to wear a dark gray shirt anymore, or coming from doors, taking off your dress wear and just being like, I'm going to just sit here and eat sushi and drink wine and watch Lord of the Rings in my underwear. That's all we need for our date. Like, those were our special date nights of, we're not going out and doing anything. We've kind of brought everything into our little bubble, and that's all we want.
Yeah, those inside date nights were fun. I remember when I was dating this one chick, and we were sharing the cabin at the time, and I would go to work out, and she would go do her last set for the day, and I would call in to Zoomies and get our sushi, and I would go work out, get done from the gym, come down, grab the sushi out the back door, because we always had that back door entrance, because you would call in and tell them beforehand, you're like, hey, I'm a crew member, because that's how they would know to ring it in, and you would give them your CPAS number. Right. And then you come down and pick it up afterwards, and I would always tell them to meet me at that back door, and I would sneak in.
Then you don't have to put on dress wear to go get it from the guest side.
Exactly. That was the other thing.
Times, yeah, I'd have to put on, and you're like, oh, it's formal night. Dang it. And you have to put on a suit, walk upstairs, grab your Zumi, get downstairs, take it, fold it all nice, put it back in the closet.
Oh, man. The worst was having to run up there on formal night. Oh, yeah. Gosh. But that other thing is, you never really had this, but you didn't have to, like, play the coconut hotline of the dating game too, is of, okay, we just started dating, or maybe this is a first time thing. do we want to go out into a crew area or do we want to kind of keep this on the hush? When is your roommate out? How do we time this up so that we can just keep this quiet and X, Y, and Z because we don't want everybody to be up in our business?
Yeah.
So, like, or can we go to Vintages and sit in the back corner and nobody would see us if we took our name tags off? Like, you never had to play that game.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
To avoid the coconut hotline. And it's like, oh, man, you know, if we sit at the front of Chops tonight, where everybody's going to see us. Or if at Oliver's or wherever I'm going. Like, if we sit out on the main...
Where I'm walking by and you see someone, you're like, did you see him and her sitting in the back together? Like, no, really? Like, ooh.
Or everybody comes out. Here was the other one that was super fun, is you come out for 70s night, because some crew members that knew it in advance would go get seats at the pub like 45 minutes beforehand and just sit at the table and watch. And you come out and you see so-and-so with so-and-so, and you're like, oh, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Like, oh, they're making it official, yeah!
It was so, that type of stuff was hilarious. And definitely something you had to pay attention to if you were a single person and you didn't want all your business getting out to the whole coconut hotline.
Considered, because, I mean, there were times where I would go on dates with, like, other girls to dinner because, hey, Jared, do you want to come do this? Like, oh, no, I've got meetings or whatever. Like, oh, well, I've got the night off. And then, especially from AO, we were around there like, hey, you want to go out? Like, just me and you. Like, I mean, if anyone wants to come, I don't really care. Like, I just want to go eat chops or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you guys on a date? Like, no, we're having dinner. Just like straight platonic. I just didn't want to eat chops by myself, like huge steaks sitting in the corner. Like, this is good, but I have no one to share it with.
Exactly. We were just the only two that were off. That happened a lot too. Rumors swirled constantly of everything.
Yeah, that is where the drama is real. Where it can be like, oh my god, did you see Nagy on a date with that girl? Like, oh my god, what are they like? Are him and Jer okay? Like, guys, we were just having dinner. Like, how did the guest service manager hear about that? Like, what the hell happened?
Oh.
But that's where the drama can just, like you said, that coconut hotline, you're like, that thing spread like wildfire to get through all those channels.
I
mean, that was one of the other things that we would do is when we would go see shows on date nights, and there's shows that you've seen dozens of times anyway, because we'd get on the ship, and again, before we even knew anybody, we'd go see the shows just to see what they're like. But then when you start to get to know people more, especially the cast members, you want to go see those certain parts. Or like, oh, I love when they sing this song. We're not going for the whole show. We're going to pop in, watch them, cheer on our favorite singer, dancer, whatever, and bounce out. Sort of like you said, when people in 70s knew exactly where to sit, they weren't going to watch 70s. They were going to see us. It's the exact same concept of, I'd go to the ice show, and on Symphony, the opening song is Sounds of Silence by Disturbed. And I would go see that show for the skater because she would just crush it. And that song's so powerful on those huge speakers and the visuals on the ice. Just watching her skate was just so awesome. And then we'd leave because we're like, there's maybe a couple songs we want to stay for, but otherwise you're just going to support your friends and things like that. And again, getting to know more people, you'd want to go see them perform, like Aqua Show, go see that specific thing. And be like, hey, for our date night, like, we're going to do whatever, and let's take a lap to walk off all the sushi we just consumed. Take a lap, go see a bit of the show, and then go back. Like, that was our idea of a pretty chill date night of just relaxing.
Yeah, and you would want to see, you would time it up so, like, in the Aqua Show in particular, everybody would stop what they're doing anytime Bennett climbed on that high dive. Like, once he climbed onto that 17-meter platform, anybody on the boardwalk just went, oh, and there was silence regardless of where you were. So like there were some things that you couldn't believe, and this was your buddy. Like I remember him in particular, he would call me Energizer Bunny because on the Oasis class ships, the running track was on like deck 4 or 5, and it went back where the Aqua Theater would make their way in. So they would be below the actual Aqua Theater, and they would kind of warm up on the track and then make their way in. So I would always see them when I'm running, and he would always just dap me up between shows, and he's getting hyped up to go jump on the high dive. and he's just giving me daps and props and making sure that I've got everything that I need to keep it running. And I'm like, you go get it, man. I'd always be the best hype man, and I'd give him the gladiator speech. That was a big one that he enjoyed. But he would always see me before shows and after shows, just still boop, 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 and my little headphones on. Because if you think about it, right, the track's only, I think it was a third of a mile. So to get 1 mile in, I have to run 3 times around the track. So if I'm running just like a 10K, I'm doing like 20 laps, man.
Yeah.
So
no, and a little insider, and it was only for the high dive, but a little insider bit is if you go up to the sports deck behind the flow rider and you're watching the high dive from there, then you really get a sense, because they are only like 5 decks below you and you're looking down into that pool, so you basically have their vision of what that, like, you go down to the aqua theater, you're like, dude, it's a big pool, it's like 17 meters, whatever. Then you go up top and you're like, that little peanut does not look big enough to be jumping off this ship. Like, even if the ship's barely moving, you see it from up top, and you have that bird's eye view of just like, dang. And when you'd see them jump from up there, it was so cool. But yeah, like you said, it's those little tiny things of those guys just being around, and you're like the behind the scenes look of what they're doing while you're just running laps. And I would be sitting with them having a beer, be like, you go, Chris. See you in 5 minutes. And like, I need to reload. Can you bring me another one? This service is terrible. Come on.
Yeah, it's just mind-boggling that these world-class athletes are your drinking buddies. You know, like you sit down and you talk to the ice skating team, and you're like, so what did you guys like do before this? Oh, I got silver in the French nationals 6 years in a row. Yeah,
I was competing with the Red Bull
just
competitions
missed the
in
Russian team by 3 points or whatever, and you're like, oh, so this is what you do. Yeah. And then you watch.
What'd you guys do? Like, I taught at a summer camp.
Exactly. I remember one time I went on a date with a skater, and I was like, she is so out of my league. Like, she was like 3-time French doubles champion or something like that. I was like, but I don't know what I'm going to bring to the table here. Right. Let's see what we can do.
I mean, yeah, but that was the cool part of kind of watching dating on ships. It's these people that in real life would have no connections whatsoever, but they're stuck on a 5,000 person ship in the middle of the ocean and run into each other at a wine and cheese night. Like, sweet, way to go.
So let's tell people about, you alluded to the cabin situation. So there's 3 different types of cabins that we ran into. There were more of this, but
only us.
I was about to say,
the other one,
there are single share cabins, regular bunk bed cabins, and then couples cabins. So let's go over the difference in between those 3, and then how that kind of also interacted with your lifestyle and day to day and what it meant.
And I think personality-wise, which has made me laugh the most, is the single-share cabins are 5 feet wide. Your bed is about 4+ feet off the ground, and it folds down over a desk. So you'd fold it down to sleep, you'd put it back up, and then you had like a closet right next to the door, and like a big long counter space with room for cabinets and drawers and things like that. And then another closet on the side and a tiny little personal sink that's, this big. And you had a personal sink and a mirror and cabinet there. And then you had a door that shared the toilet and shower with another single share on the other side.
Yep. And I would say wall to wall is about arm width.
Yeah, not more.
If you're taller than 6 foot, you couldn't get your arms all the way out.
Right. And then maybe 8-9 feet deep, because it would have the bed and the 2 closets, and then 8-9 feet tall, because it had that bed that would fold down, but like you couldn't kneel on your bed without hitting your head. You're hunched over.
And if your light was on when you were in bed, that fucking fluorescent light was 3 feet from your face the whole time. You're like, God.
So, personality-wise, it made me laugh because I got a single share one time when I signed on a ship before Jera. Or actually, yeah. before her. I signed on like a week or two early, and I got a single share. And people are like, when I signed on, I'm meeting them. They're like, "Oh, where are you at?" I'm like, "Oh, this cabin." And they're like, "You got a single share?" I'm like, "Yeah. Do you want to trade?" And they're like, "Yes." Like, I got back to my cabin and I was like, "Oh, sick! Got my own time." I brought like a keyboard. I was like, "I'll write some of my memoirs and write down stuff." I sat down and after like 20 minutes, just staring at my iPad, blinking me in the face, I was like, "Fuck this! I don't know anyone. I'm going to the bar. I feel so alone." Like to me, that was
Bro,
too much isolation. And
I
everybody else was like, "No, I want my own space." I was like, no, 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 I want a buddy. Like, you can get unlucky. I would say I got blessed where I never had a bad roommate, and I only had like four, and never had a bad one.
okay.
So I got super blessed in that. But I understood the desire for single shares, but that's where I truly felt alone on ships was, excuse me, single shares.
I remember when Callan came to the cafeteria on the Anthem, and we were like just making it out, and we hadn't made it to starting cruising yet. And he goes, "Guys, get to HR. They close at 5." It was like 4, probably 27. And he goes, "They close at 5. They're giving single shares out to everybody." We went and we pieced out. We all got single shares.
Nice.
Other than like 3 sports staff, or I'd say probably 6 of them out of all of us didn't have single shares. And I loved my single share, dude. It was my fortress of solitude. One of
And
my
that's,
favorite things was after a long, long day, I would go to the crew cafe, and we were in England, so I would get those balsamic salt and vinegar chips from Kettle,
Okay.
and I would go back, put on a movie, and just hound down the whole bag. Like
Yeah.
I was like, this is the perfect night. I'm going to bed. See you.
Yeah. See, for me, I need the activity. And the other thing about single shares is we talked about it before, but generally your cabin was near people in your division because they
Yep.
wanted to kind of keep the hours similar. Single shares were more of just a shotgun spread where you might have someone that works casino or server or whatever, and people would say like, "Oh man, like I'm dying in my single share because this person has completely opposite hours. They're getting up at 3 a.m. to shower and use the toilet and make all this noise because they're going to work or getting off work at that time." And you're like, "Man, that's a bummer." But again, like rarer, but it happens of people
Yep.
just not having ideal suite mates.
Yeah. And the other thing to talk about that is they kept us in the same areas for also like hallway activity too. Because you guys have to remember, these, like everything we had was made out of metal. You could not walk down that hallway in the middle of the night, and the lights had to be on. There was always a crack at the bottom of the door that had the light
Yeah.
coming through, no matter what time it was. So if you got woken up and you kind of like peeked your head over to see what happened, you're up for like however long it takes to go back to sleep. That's
Oh,
why we
yeah.
had the curtains on our bed. That's
Yeah.
in the dual cabins. So we'll get to those dual cabins now. We had a bunk bed. And then you had kind of like a
Each person had a
vanity.
closet.
Well, you had the 2 closets next to each other, but that little shelf drawer thing, like that vanity
Right.
shelf, you had one for the lower bunk bed, and then you had one for the upper bunk bed that you
Right.
kind of kept your clock and whatever, like
Phones.
Game
And
Boy
they
shit.
have like power outlets right there so you could charge your phones and things at night.
Exactly.
Up top had like a little tiny folding table that could fit. I remember it could barely fit my Kindle on it, but it was the perfect size for a Kindle. So like you could read, put it up there, turn on a movie, just kind of do that kind of thing. Like you said, close the curtains. You're watching a little movie, usually with your headphones. Same thing. Your roommate's watching one,
Ooh.
and then it would
Let's talk about
have.
that, because that varied from room to room. You either got one big TV in the center of the room, or you got 2 little TVs in your bunk bed.
At the foot of your bed,
And
yeah.
that always was a contention depending on the roommates, right?
Oh, to reach down
No, if you
or
had
up
one
and
TV,
turn
what
down
you
the
were
volume on
watching.
them.
No,
Yeah.
if you were in your own beds, it was pretty mutual of just like, hey, can you turn it down? Like it was accepted that everybody gets one, you know?
Right.
I-
Well, also the sort of like, hey, like if you and I were in a cabin, like, Fish, I want to watch this movie. Like, cool. I'm not gonna watch my TV. I'm gonna sit and read or play my Game Boy or do whatever, and vice versa, kind of thing.
Well, if we were in our own cabins, generally you were kind of doing your own thing, but if we had our own TVs, but if we had that mutual TV, it was like, hey man, I really want to watch this tonight, but I really wanted to watch that tonight. And this is where like times with the die came into it, or it's like,
Yeah.
especially if they want to watch something that's a different language,
Live.
like
Or
not even live, different language. That was always rough because I remember I had some Mauritian roommates that wanted to watch their shows in French, because back to our thing is it could be the Lego movie, but they just wanted to watch it in French, and I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
there is
so I mean
zero chance.
that's where I got blessed when, again, I had this guy from Scotland, so amazing, and we had different cabins, and it was one of our anniversaries, and he literally left a note on, like, oh, that was the other thing, is whiteboards are in every cabin, because you can't call each other, you can't do anything. Whiteboards, most people had them outside their door for other people, and then you had them inside for each other. And he left a like beautiful note. I think I've still got a picture of it. That's just like, "Hey guys, the room's yours tonight. Happy anniversary. I'm not coming back. Like, you guys have a wonderful night." And like, you walked in, and like we both saw that. We're like I think during date night we went and found him and gave him a big hug and stuff like that. But yeah, it's that mutual thing of like, hey, or especially if you left a note during the day, like, "Hey Chris, I want to do a date night tonight. Can you please be sparse? Like, not be around." And you'd see it, and then you'd write, like, "You got it," or "I'll be back from this time to this time, then gone," or "Dude, I'm wrecked. I'm sorry, I'm coming back tonight." Like,
Yeah,
communication is key.
the whiteboards were a big thing of communication, because you have to remember we didn't have Wi-Fi or anything, so we couldn't. Well, we had Wi-Fi, but you had to pay for it. So we didn't text each other. We didn't have phones. There were only senior people that had deck phones that could text each other. So you had to literally call somebody on their cabin phone, and if they were there, they would answer. And if they weren't there,
you can't leave a message, or you didn't, because no one checked. Because you'd go through messages and be like, messages. "You have 75 messages," and you listen to the first one. It's like in a different language, whatever. Like, dude, no one's checked these messages in months,
4 years. 4 years. Like,
so it's like, it was just easier to walk by a cab and be like, "Fish, ping pong, 8:00, see you there," and then leave.
And they'll either show up or not, and it doesn't hurt your feelings, because they either got back to their cabin or they did exactly what we said and said, "Oh, I'm in formal night. I'm already dressed up. I'm gonna watch the show. Come back at 8:15. Oh, I'll be there in a half hour." Whatever. Like, that happened all the time, but it also like taught us to be a little bit more respectful of people's time, in the same aspect of, oh man, I hated people that were late all the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, most of the dudes, I get distracted way too easily. But leading to that, my favorite was because there's the scavenger hunt, like literally breadcrumbs, where you write the note and it'd be like, "Jara, we're at Fish's cabin number whatever, come hang out." And then you're all sitting there partying, you run out of booze or whatever, and you're like, "Oh, my speaker died." Like, "Okay, let's go to my cabin." You leave on the cabin, you leave, party move to blank, and then you're there for a while, no one still shows up, and then, "All right, we're at the pub," and then they show up at the pub, and you're like, "Oh, you made it." And they're like, "Yeah, I followed you guys." Like, I went room to room to room up to the pub. You're like,
everybody's so proud of you, baby. Yeah. So proud of you. You made it, man. All right. So I was only in a couple's cabin once, but you got it a lot more, especially probably once Jared made it to supervisor.
That, but I mean, because not even that, it was because, one, we came on board as a couple, and I think that's something very important to point out. Registering as a couple, you literally have to have mail that says we're a couple, because it's an HR nightmare for people to start dating, and then they're like, "We want a couple's cabin," and then they get a couple's cabin, and then they break up, and they're like, "Now we need to be split up," and they're like, "We don't like there's not always rooms available. Like, they're maximizing ship space and time. Like, you guys broke up, like whatever." So they want it more first. So we went on there
with
dating.
That person that you broke up with for 6 more weeks.
Yeah. Have fun.
Twiddling your thumbs, looking around.
So we came on board dating, and then we got engaged, and then we got married for the last 2 years of ships. It was way easier to get on board, and we'd get on board, and like sometimes the first thing that HR would do is apologize, being like, "We're really sorry, guys. You're in a bunk cabin, even though you guys are married." We'd be like, "Hey, that's totally fine," but we would have that shared space of generally having a couple's cabin, and it was the exact same layout as bunk, maybe a little bit longer because it had like about a queen size mattress, but it did also have another mattress that could like another bunk that could fold down. So we definitely had slumber parties and movie parties because you could fit people on the bed, fold down the mattress, have another one. I think before Alice's Halloween party, we have an amazing picture of like 17 of us, where it's like 6 of us on the bunk bed, 6 of us on the bed, and then the rest just like stacked on the floor, chairs and desks. Like, so you could fit a lot more people in them, but it was nicer because you had a bigger bed to sleep side by side on and the same kind of layout. And my hat is off to every single couple that dates on ships and shares a single share cabin bed or a bunk bed cabin. Like, Jared and I even said, we're like, yo, we love each other so much, but at night, hit the bricks. Like, go to your own bed.
Yep,
like,
that was the game. Go
rule,
upstairs. You go upstairs.
Yeah.
Well, what we did was the game was whoever got up earlier had the bottom bunk that night.
Absolutely.
Whoever got up
That was
earlier
the
had the
rule.
bottom bunk that night.
My secondary rule when I had roommates was, again, the Scottish guy. Man, I'm blanking on his name. I'm so sad about this. Scott Local, amazing human, but he was well over 6 feet. So my rule when I would get in there is, dude, you're way taller than me. I can squirrel up to the bunk bed, like the top shelf. You get the bottom bunk, like that. Like if you struggled, like if, especially because there was times where I'm in bed and they're struggling to get up top, that you're like, dude, it's more of a hassle. You're waking me up. You're causing more of a disturbance than let me just take the top bunk because I can squirrel and leap up there. And the amount of times I'd be like, I'll take top bunk, but Scott, you got to help me up. And he would like help pick me up and put me up there. I was like, Scott.
Well, there was also the immediately. Well, first of all, let's talk about how bottom bunk was king. Bottom bunk was the way to go. All right, by country mile. So
let's see, because I have a different opinion.
Whenever you were a top bunk kid and your bottom bunk roommate was signing off, you're like, "Hey, bud, can like after you do the sheets, can you like just put my stuff? I got to go to work. And, like, so can you just take all my stuff? I'll fold it for you. Like, I'll put fresh laundry. Just like put my.
I'll do your linens, but I'm taking bottom bunk for the last couple days.
And make sure you do it before that mother fluffer signs on too, because sometimes they sign on before the other person signs off. Like, you're supposed to be completely out of your cabin, but we all know the lollygaggers that, and some people sign on at like 7:15 in the morning, and you're like, holy cow, bud.
Whereas supervisor was on it today. I thought I had another couple hours.
Yeah, exactly. So you're just like, hey, before anybody gets in this room, just like make sure my stuff is here, so I have a bottom bunk moving forward. Right. That was always a game, at least for me, because I would, when you're the second person to come into a room, you're generally a top bunk kid, and you get that until your roommate leaves, however long that could be.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, at least for Jared and I, bottom bunk, you were the doer. Because especially when I was on top bunk, I forgot everything. So I'd get on the top bunk and be like, Jared, can you give me some water? Jared, I forgot to turn off the light. And you're just like, she'd just be like, come on, man. Like, or I'd be like halfway up the ladder. She'd be like, no. Do you have water? Turn off the lights. Put your crap away. Like, Jared, I forgot the remote on the table. Like, come on, man. So, that was the other thing that was my only fun stuff with bunk beds. But again, we didn't really mind the bunks because, you know, you're coming back from work and you're wrecked anyway. And you're just like getting in bed.
Yeah.
So it's kisses, hugs, cuddles, and then like, all right, good night. Like that part we never had a problem with. But again, we'd been together for like a year or two before we really started getting cabins together, and then you know, we were just, you know, we lived and we spent every waking moment with each other. So our comfortability with like, yeah, we can do it versus, like I said, the couples I don't know how they do it, because especially like the dancers and singers, they show up and they're stretching extra. Like, you okay? Like, yeah, we slept with our like our partner last night. Like, why? Like, I know you guys want to be around.
Like in that single share, you're.
Yeah.
I did that once with a chick, and I was like, no, we're not playing this sleepover game again. That was horrific. That was.
Yeah. We would definitely, on some movie nights, we'd fall asleep like that, but it's when you woke up, kiss, good night, I'm going to my own bed, or roll over and she'd be like, hey, go to bed. You're like, all right, good night. Like,
you know what?
Just go up to the top bunk.
I just had a light bulb moment. So since I moved into this house with my aunt and uncle, I sleep in that tiny little alleyway between the bed and the wall on the floor because the bed's too soft for me. So
Nice.
this is all making me feel so comfortable. And I think part of it, my life, is I feel more comfortable in a tiny space on a piece of sheet metal, sleeping in a normal bed.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that has definitely had profound effects because, again, being on land, one of the things we're going out and we got a king-size bed because it's big enough for Jeremy, Atlas, and Disney, so we all sleep on it, but we got like a bamboo like box thing from like IKEA, and it's way too soft, and I threw a butcher slab like under it, so it's just like a piece of hard plywood under my side because I'm like I'm like, where's my steel slats? Like, I need those back.
Because those mattresses were maybe 5 inches thick.
Oh, well, so when you did, that was the other beauty, is when you got a ship takeout, those mattresses were brand new, and you're like, I am the first one to break this in, versus when you got on like a Freedom class ship, you're like, how many thousands of bodies have been in this thing?
Yeah,
like,
and then, okay, so here's one thing. We'll tell you about this. So one thing that we had to do was you could either bring your own sheets or you had to do take your linens to laundry on the ship. And here's a real vet move, is when you come in there and you've got a shitty mattress, you could take your mattress to the same laundry spot, and whatever mattress is in the pile of mattresses, you can take. So sometimes you got to go down there and there was a good one. There were some fresh ones right out the bag. But then you got down there, they all looked like they had been absolutely blown out. You pick it up and it folds in your hand and you're like, what? Am I supposed to? And then you flap it like a sheet. You're like, how am I?
Yeah, the veteran move was definitely you go down there to get just linens, and you're like, yo, fresh mattresses, and you grab one, then go back up to your cabin, and you literally start calling around being like, guys, there's new mattresses downstairs, like 5. Godspeed, click. Like,
exactly. I've done my due diligence of telling you.
People see you hauling one, and you're just like, guys, new mattresses, and you like run away, and people, like you said, finish their dinner, like, or even just stop eating, run downstairs, get a new mattress. But we've talked about it before, where we got our TP and stuff like that. That's the same place where you change out your linens, and it's on you to just, you bring your linens in, you throw them in the big bin, and they've just got shelves of all of them, pillowcases, linens, blankets, everything. But it's just sort of like they kind of have a guy watching to be like, hey man, you don't need to take 10 sheets. Like, that was also a veteran but lazy thing to do, is you're like, all right, I'm taking 4 sets of sheets because
look over your shoulder and snag whatever you can. Or you would find all the sheets that are the correct shade of blue and grab all of those, because they were all very different shades of blue depending on how long they've been in cycle and how many times they've been washed.
But it was that you needed that borderline of like, okay, that's too new, this is perfect because it's nice and soft, or this is literally I'm gonna roll over and tear a hole in it.
And so we also did with our clothes laundry, we didn't take that to people to do. We didn't have that particular service. Some higher up officers got that and they had people do their laundry, but we had to actually take our laundry over to the crew areas, which was all free. But they had, what you would say, probably like 20 washers and dryers, a pair of each.
It was a big room.
In these rooms that were set aside that you could go do your laundry in. And I remember, if we talk about like safe spaces to find your comfort, I remember going into those laundry rooms in the middle of the night when nobody was in there, and you go at like, I'd say 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, start doing your laundry, and I would just watch a movie on my iPad and sit on one of those couches because they had couches in there, and I would just lean back and kick my feet up. Oh,
A clutch move was if there was a party coming up that you didn't want to do, that was a very important time to go do laundry because people are all at the party or all at the sporting event, all doing whatever. You're like, hey, Nag, you coming to this show or you coming to this event? Like, no, I'm going to go put my laundry in first because no one's down there. And it's something you did with downtime. I did a lot of laundry on like weather days. So when the ship was moving too much, all the, activities are closed or it's pouring rain, so half your activities or your schedule's canceled. It's like, hey, I'm on call. I'll check in with you soon, but I'm gonna go put my laundry in. Like, I'll be back in my room in 20 minutes, hanging out, and then going to change it over and things like that.
yeah, and let's also talk about so there were people on the ship that worked in the engine rooms and on the decks and got grease and oil and all this extra crap on their laundry. And there were machines distinctly set aside for these oil things. And if you didn't know on your first contract which ones are particularly for oil, and you go, hey, these ones are open and everyone else is in use, you don't take a second and go, I wonder why. And then you have a whole set of uniforms that's just stained black.
Yeah. And I mean, then you open it up, you'd see the clothes just wrecked, and then you'd see the giant sign that says coveralls only. You're like, damn, that should be bigger.
Every one of us made that mistake at some point in time.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, you haven't done enough contracts.
Yeah. Well, the other sneak we did was on Quantum class. iFly had a laundry machine in the facility because we had to wash the suits every couple days, depending on how busy they were. And so, yeah, it would be that timing of, all right, it's a rain day, and you'd be upstairs doing your laundry. And I mean, it happened to me countless times, and I looked at other people countless times where you're sitting there chilling at the desk, just on the computer, playing your phone or reading, and someone else comes up with their bin, and you're like, mine's already in there, 20 minutes till it's done. They're like, okay. Like, I'll buy you a beer. For me, it was, I'll buy you a beer if you put mine in. Like, done. Like, because you're changing it over, throwing theirs in, hitting start, and it's good to go. So, yeah, it was a very team symbiotic relationship of, doing laundry for each other and helping each other out, at least at the iFly facility, because, all the things. But we definitely had the dumbest, like, patronage of just a regular sports staff comes up to their laundry, like, iFly's doing theirs right now. It's just being assholes for no reason.
Yeah.
Or if you did actually have to wash suits,
I was about to say, they always conveniently had to do that when we were doing roller skates, which was the one activity that you could probably get away with doing whatever the hell you wanted, because all you were doing was every half hour checking out new roller skates. So once you got them all back and lined up, everybody would just go do their laundry or eat hot dogs in the back while one person sat at the desk. And iFly would always go, hey, look, they're running roller skates. You want to do the suits right now? Yeah, let's do it. And then Dylan would be standing outside with this basket of laundry, like, son of a stupid iFly.
Yeah. But the days where we were actually doing suits, it was a pain because you'd go up there and you're like, all I have to do tonight is wash these suits. And it takes like 5 loads. And then you go up and you change the suits over, and then you're about to put new ones in, but someone's got their laundry like washing, and you just have this pile of suits next, and you're like, dude, you just put another hour of me sitting up here or coming back again to do it. So when we needed to wash suits, very inconvenient, but again, I like to think that for the most part, it's sort of like whatever. Put your clothes are more important than the iFly ones. Like, if you were smart, you always washed the suits in a way that there was always still sizes of everything available. So if you needed them, you're good. And then you just kept going through them. But yeah, that was definitely one of the most important activities we would do when there's nothing going on. It's like, hey, the laundry's stacking up. But I will add, I knew a couple guys that did pay for laundry service, and it was just getting to know the right blue boy, and he was just like, yeah, dude, I pay $20 a day. He's gave me like all the blue boys had deck phones because they need to be able to be reached 24/7. And he's like, guy gave me his number. I just shoot him a message that just says like laundry, put the bag outside my door. And I remember the first time I walked up to his cabin, I was like, the hell is this? Because it's in like the dry cleaning laundry bag. And I open it up and everything's folded and clean. And I'm like, what is this? He's like, it's my laundry. He's like, I don't feel like doing it. It's easy enough to just get it done. I'm like, yo, that is a high power move.
Yeah.
Having somebody do your laundry.
We can also talk about the barbers. So we had our own barber shop on all the ships. A lot of people didn't know about this. So for the guys, this is where they would all get their hair done. I almost never saw women in there doing haircuts. It was always just guys.
Too many layers. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was exactly what you would picture a barber shop on a cruise ship like. 2 chairs loaded with Filipinos, Jamaicans, Romanians, all talking shit about everybody. Like, it is the exact barbershop vibe that you think it would be. And it is such a good time. But all the barbers are crew barbers. So it's guys that do it in their free time, and they brought their kits with them and they cut hair. And man, when you found a dude that actually knew how to do your hair, you'd be like, brother, like, tell me your schedule. And he would be booked. And so all evening he would just be in the basement down there vaping, listening to music and partying out, cutting everybody's hair.
Best haircut I've ever gotten was the same thing. I found one guy. I've never gotten a haircut this good. He literally would spend an hour and be like, yeah, just take it to like a 3. And he would start with like a 6, then a 5, then a 4, then a 3, then fade it. And by my third one, I was bringing 2 beers and my iPad to watch movies on. And I fell asleep twice during the haircut because it was just so good. Like, because he leans you back and they wash your hair, they do everything. And then you're like, okay, how much? He's like, $9. You're like, here's 20. Thank you. I will see you in 3 weeks.
Yep.
And when you would do that, that's when you could call and be like, hey, do you have any time? They're like, yeah, for you, I got you. Like, give me a day or 2. And you're like, done. And just the crispest cuts, and you're like, because otherwise you could go to the spa,
it was
and get
expensive,
it done.
Or it would be if a lot of the sports staff had a lot of buzz cuts, unless it was an English lad that cared about all his hair. The majority of us sports staff had buzz cuts because it was a lot cooler.
Yeah.
So we would all like just meet up at one dude's cabin in the middle of the night. We would sit in the hallway. We're all just buzzing each other's hair. Just whoever got cut last got in line and starts trimming the next guy. So it would be you and a bunch of Brazilians just buzzing down each other.
Oh, I cared about the high and tight, needed it.
Yeah.
But the other thing that would happen is they had the barbershop, but then there was other times where I remember I got a couple cuts where I was going to see someone in their cabin, and you just see somebody with a chair in the hallway. Because
in a
all
sheet
of the,
wrapped around them.
Yeah.
Not even like a barber.
All the hallways had outlets for the vacuums and cleaning and stuff like that. So these guys had the converters, and they would just buzz hair. And like I would walk up and go, hey, can you do me next? Like, how much? Like, they're like, yeah, I got you $10. Like, perfect. And you'd go back to the cabin, grab your own sheet or towel, walk back, and you'd sit and wait. And you're just getting your hair cut in a hallway because it's super easy. It's all linoleum floors in our hallways. They just sweep it up, throw it away. And, I mean, the barbershop was the treat, but I think I got a lot of haircuts as well. Just from a dude in a hallway that no idea who he was, didn't learn his name, nothing. Just walked by like, can you cut my hair? Like, what do you want? This, and this. Like, yeah, cool. Be back in 20 minutes. Like, all right.
And just happened. You were like, I guess I'm not going to the gym till later. Well,
right.
Back, and then you dap them up afterwards and you move on. Like, oh, dude, it happened it was all the time. Those random hallway things. Or even one of my favorite ones was when you would go down to laundry after laundry was closed, and all the guys that worked in laundry lived right next to the laundry. And they would be sitting in the hallway, and they're all lined up, and there's just one guy sitting there playing on like a mid-sized guitar or ukulele and they're singing, just passing around a bottle of Fireball. It's like that was also the random crap you could see in the hallway all the time too.
Because again, it's that the downtime that we had where, because it's not all crew parties and this and that, and you're not always amped up to just go play beer pong or do whatever. It's sometimes the little tedious things you're trying to do in life that, like you said, you're walking by and you get a haircut, or you're walking by and someone's just sitting there chilling and you sit down and have a conversation with some randos, and then you might not even see them again for months. But you're like, yeah, got this small little interaction. But I think the most difficult thing was groceries, depending on the port especially. So a lot of times with downtime, I mean, I hate to say how many times that my focus, especially in Fort Lauderdale, was getting off the ship. There was the cruise shuttle that was like $5, and it was just like, it's a 15 passenger van, and the guy's just sitting there with his hand out. Everybody throws in money when he gets to, was it like $120? He's like, that's it, no more people. Closes the doors and he drives off.
The other thing that people didn't know about those vans is they took only cash. So you always had to have cash getting off the ship. You had to run by the ATM beforehand, and they would stand there and they would jam pack as many people into these vans. And this was their like living. They owned a passenger van, and on crew days they would just do laps dropping us off. And you figure if there's 20 of us get in there and they get $5 a person, 20 minutes round trip, and they pay. You pay when you go and come back, by the way. So you're jumping out, and there's a line of crew members jumping back in. It is comical. But Fort Lauderdale, that would get you out.
Going in, they have 15 people packed in. On the way back, they might only be able to fit 10 because everybody's got all these bags of groceries and shoes and boxes and fans and speakers. And you're like, hey, is there any room? And you look, and a dude's got a brand new JBL, like, monster boomer. And you're like, thanks, bud. I have to wait for the next one. Like, all right. But our secret was we would, at that point, I even shared it with random crew members. I'd be like, yo, we have service. We're calling an Uber. Because an Uber would be like $10, and we would just throw people in, and I'd just be like, I'll buy the Uber. You buy me some Gatorade when we get to the grocery store, and we'll call it square. And that's the other way we kind of got to and from the Publix that was right there. But we would...
It depended on the day if you needed an Uber or not. First of all, let's talk about how awesome Fort Lauderdale is as a home port for us and anybody. Because they have like sports bars that we would go get lunch at if we had the morning off or whatever. They had things that were open in the morning. But the biggest thing that they had was like Publix and Walgreens, where you could get your true needs that you needed. So you would get off the ship, and I actually really liked to get off in the morning and take that walk over, because that's when I would call people that I haven't talked to in weeks. Like I would call my mom, and I would call my brother, and the cool thing about it is everybody would know to answer the phone, because like
it's turnaround day, he's calling,
they'd be ready to go to listen and answer your call and talk to you. And I really like that walk because it was only about 2 miles, but if you had time, you had to get there. You had to get in the Uber. The other one that was super fun was when nobody could get off and you had to go get a bunch of stuff for everybody. I remember one time specifically, I got a phone call and all the girls' sports staff were working that day and all needed tampons. And I came back with bricks of tampons. And
because again, these things are available in the cruise shop, because we have a small little store and it's got chocolate and popcorn and chips and tampons and socks and all the things, but there is a very high markup. So it was not uncommon for me to go out and Jared to be like, bring me like 4 boxes of tampons. They're like, got you. And you're coming back with, like you said, just bricks and doing the shopping for everybody. And you've got a list here on your phone, another list here. You're like, this is illegible, but I'll try my best.
You always knew when all the sports staff was working, because somebody would come come back with probably 7 bags of GNC, just
I was
loaded
gonna
with
say, yeah.
creatine and protein and every
doing
other
the
known
GNC
made-up
run.
nutrition to man.
Yeah. Because, again, we've talked about how good the food really is, but there is a repeat button that it is maybe on like a 15, 17-day cycle. It is that same food over and over and over again. So we would specifically go out and Jera would get jars of peanut butter and like cinnamon, and then she would in the mess mix together cinnamon, honey, peanut butter, things like that, and put them on an apple. Or you're getting protein because you're like, dude, I just cannot have like the eggs and bacon and sausage for breakfast. Like I just need a protein shake for breakfast, kind of thing.
I cannot eat boiled chicken and salad again for
Yeah,
the 90th night in a row. All right, but
right.
I'm
Like,
gonna snap. The other one that we got a lot of was the different hot sauces, because that was one easy way to
yeah.
mix up meals, is by bringing in different hot sauces.
But the
So
catch was from Fort Lauderdale, you didn't get the hot sauces at Publix. You waited till Jamaica. Then you went off and you'd go get a patty and they'd have a spread of hot sauces and you would just like dabble, bite, dabble, bite, dabble, bite. Okay, I want that one, dabble, bite. Not that one. Like that one just roasted me. Like, or you'd have the other guys that are like,
oh
bring me the hottest one you can get. And you're like wearing a glove to hand it to them. Like, here you go. Godspeed. Like,
yeah, dude, those Caribbean port hot sauces were great. Jamaica was great.
oh,
Haiti had some real good ones when you were.
okay.
Honduras had some decent ones. I don't remember the Cayman Islands for their hot sauces though. I know.
Yeah, I mean, I never truly went shot. Like again, Publix. My plan was always, I was definitely way more the movie guy because I would get off, and I had 3 stops. It would be Publix, and we would usually get like like a drink to just sip on while we're shopping, and loading up with groceries. Then we'd go over to Duffy's. And that was a sports
Duffy's.
bar.
Oh, let's talk about
And
Duffy's. Shout out Duffy's in Fort Lauderdale.
so hard. Yeah, like the Fort Lauderdale Duffy's was, I became a point member there and crushed it during
To
contract.
this day, I still get my Duffy's emails. I'm saving my points until I get to go back to Florida and spend them, because every Sunday we would go to Duffy's, man.
Yeah.
Oh, because they had the best Wi-Fi. They knew their clientele.
Yep, they crushed it, and that's why I was there. Like, they opened at 11, and we'd finish shopping. Especially when you finish debark, you'd usually get there at like 10:30. So that's what gave you time to go get groceries and stock up on whatever. For me, it was a lot of like Gatorades and other things like that, like supplemental things that you're not trying to buy on the ship, and you hadn't found a cup left over, so you couldn't use the soda machines. So you're stocking up on like liquid IVs kind of stuff, and then waiting outside Duffy's, walking into the bar, opening my laptop, plugging it in, even though it's already fully charged, and then just downloading movies and everything
Everything,
that you
anything and
could.
everything, and just letting it rip. And I remember you and I, we would, this one time specifically stands out to me, is we were about to start our D&D campaign that we were going to play with you, me, Jera, and Brazzo. And
Yeah.
you and me went to Duffy's that day and downloaded a whole ton of shit, but also sat there with like the player's handbook and the dungeon master's handbook and wrote out all of our characters. Like, I will
Yeah.
never forget that day, because we sat
You're
there
like-
at Duffy's for like 2 hours, and our waiter just kept coming through, and we're like, hey bud, if you see the water glass empty, fill it up. Outside of that, leave us alone and we'll tip you fat. And he was like, you got
Oh.
it.
Well, mine was definitely the frosted beer mugs. And
Yeah.
dude, the amount of times I got bit by those. So Duffy's, so you guys know, this is a huge plug for them. It's 2-for-1 drinks. And the amount of times that like you said, we're like, hey, when this is empty, bring another one. And it'd be empty. I'd be like, hey, can I get my other one? Can I get my other one? And then another server would bring me one, and it'd be finished. And then the bartender would finally catch on and bring me like the third. I'd be like, no, I already got it. He's like, well, it's already poured. Do you want to? Be like, yeah, if you're going to twist my arm, all right.
Yeah.
And-
And you would definitely have a beer or two, even if you, like, specifically if you had to go do Embark. If you had to go back to the ship
yeah.
and sit there and invite people on and say, welcome, welcome. Luckily, I didn't have to do embark that much because I was in sail away. We got to get out of that one. But even still, you may have a beer or two before sail away. That's a good time.
Yeah, so it's like we'd sit there, use tons of internet, like you said, contact family. It's kind of that downtime of I got my groceries, I'm just chilling, seeing what movies are available. For me, I would download a lot of books, things like that, just re-upping for the next one. Because again, for the most part, you're not really touching internet that much. Like for me, I think I said it before, I canceled my cell phone, so I no longer had most cellular data. And then when I did again for calling Ubers and stuff like that, it was cool, but internationally, I didn't use it. So I'd get to port, flash people some messages, messenger call or WhatsApp, family, say what's up, things like that. But for the most part, I didn't use our phone because I didn't, like you said, we didn't want to spend money on the internet on board. And a lot of people do. They've got a lot of downtime and they're just scrolling social media, chilling in the cafe. And you're like, that seems like a waste of money. But hey, good on you.
Well, it's back to that we were saying before. It depends, right? Like if your English isn't too great and you're 22 years old and you're working on the pool deck, maybe you just want to see only posts in Pigeon.
Right. Yeah.
So it makes you feel
using internet on those downtimes was definitely like I remember you and I specifically like, all right, we're going to the beach. Leave me alone for the next 40 minutes because all you're doing is calling and messaging family. And whether it's Florida or international, you're just messaging family, then it's like, okay, cool. Everyone's caught up to speed. Click. Let's go hit the islands. Like, let's go engage.
Even still, there were days, I remember we had a specific spot. There were a couple different spots in Cozumel, but Cozumel knew the crew loved getting off there and always had good Wi-Fi at a bunch of different places. But we would go to like this Chinese restaurant that was out and to the right, just so everybody knows. You'll find it. It's like a 6-story Chinese restaurant. And you would go in there and it's like just a mutual head nod of like, we're just here to get the Wi-Fi. Like, I appreciate your company, but we're not saying a word to each other. We're putting our headphones in. We're talking to whoever. We're silent, downloading everything. You're getting your podcast for the week. Or I remember I used to listen to a League of Legends podcast all the time. That was the only way I could stay up to date with it.
Right.
But yeah, that was one of the big things that would happen in the ports is we would also just go shopping for our day-to-day items. Cozumel was great for that because they had Mega, and Mega, everything was super cheap too. That was awesome.
Yeah, and they either took card or I would go to Mega specifically before certain things because I go, I'm going to Mega, stocking up on groceries, paying cash with US dollars, and then getting pesos back. Now I can use those pesos all around Cozumel for going to different places, Chakanab or whatever, things like that.
Yeah. So
Seattle was a nightmare for it, though. Like getting from Seattle port to places, that was one where either I never got groceries or I think only a couple. I waited till like British Columbia to get stuff because it was like 20-30 minutes to get into it. And we'd go to Pikes Peak, like that huge, the Seattle waterfront, like that was where you could go get stuff. We'd go get like fresh fruit, and you have to hide that getting back on, but like the freshest fruit, stocking up on a lot. Like I loved all the tinctures there, tinctures and elixirs of like, I'm getting a little run down. You find some like hippie person that's selling, here's a vitamin B12 stuff. Like, just I need these things just to get that. But that one was like, dude, it's such an effort versus like Fort Lauderdale, where I'll wait and go get it in Canada because this is too difficult.
Yeah, for sure. And there were good home ports and there were bad home ports. Like some great home ports. Fort Lauderdale, I think, is number one for everybody.
Yeah.
It's easy to get anywhere. They know that it's crew that's there. They take care of us. They realize that when we're in a hurry, it's somebody's at the cashier like, hey, baby, I'll open it up real quick. Come on.
Yeah.
And so you're not waiting. Like, they take care of us there because they knew that our time on land was precious.
Yeah. And getting in and out of the port was super efficient because it's like 6 lanes of all the passengers getting on, all the passengers getting off, and then shuttles and Ubers running in and out. So you could be like, yo, it's okay that it's, I got work in 40 minutes. I can get on the shuttle and not worry about it. Versus, like I said, Seattle, where you're like, yo, it's 40 minutes just to get back to the port. And then you're waiting in the miles of traffic just to get onto the ship. So it's like, if you didn't have the day, good luck.
Bro, that was rough in Orlando. Orlando, you had to take that shuttle about 20 minutes to get anywhere. So you had to time it up. But I remember specifically Galveston, turnaround day on Sunday. This is, oh my gosh, there's nothing open. I have had so many nightmares of trying to get anything done. Just like go buy whatever in Galveston. And I basically used Cozumel as my home port. I will never go back to Galveston again unless somebody pays me a significant lump sum of money. Oh, bro, I have nightmares of the 6 weeks that I stayed there and couldn't get anything done. And so my free time in the port is just running along the beaches, which is great. That sounds incredible. But have you ever seen the beach in Galveston, Nagy? It's oil rigs, all right? And it's about 3 feet of sand, and that's about it. And then it drops straight into the water, and then that's only a mile of it. The rest of it is just rock edges. It's just a barrier that they built to keep... All right, I could bring it back to center. I'm bringing it back to center. Southampton.
Real quick.
Great.
Can you say gavel?
Gavel.
Gavel. Like a judge's gavel.
Gavel. Am I saying it wrong?
I mean, different. I mean, who knows what... I say Galveston.
Galveston. I think we're saying it the same.
No, I love it for it. But I'm jealous that you got Southampton because we never got... That's like the one thing is we never got the European. We did Barcelona, and that was Symphony. And other than that, we were in... I mean, Sydney was phenomenal, but you talking about Southampton and getting to chill around like England just makes me so jealous.
Yeah, Southampton was great. That was probably one of my favorite ports. Because they had the mall, they also had a swimming pool, like indoor swimming facility that I would convince everybody. I wanted everybody to have me do debark, or I would do debark so I could get off and have the rest of the day to myself.
Yeah.
I would.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody wanted to stay up late and party, so that was easy. In Southampton, easiest debark of all time. They let everybody
off. English know how to queue, man. They know how to queue.
Less. So you're done by like 7:15, not really, but you're done by 10, where most debarks are normally around 11 or 12 that you're done. And finally,
was it an Oasis class out of there?
No, this was on the Anthem.
Okay.
Yep. So we would get them off by like 9:10, and then I would go to the pool, swim, go to the mall, get some type of food, get something, because they had awesome in the food court, which Nando's was great. Let me tell you, English Nando's versus American Nando's, big difference, bud. Big difference. Because I remember when I came home, and my mom was like, hey, we just got Nando's. I was like, we got Nando's? Let's go to Nando's. And then I went, I was like, this is not the same. I don't know how. My taste bud, I don't have a palate to tell you where they are, but let me tell you, Nando's in England, drastically better.
What kind of food is it?
Fried chicken.
Nice.
Yeah. So you would get Nando's, and then you would go back to the port and kind of get whatever shopping you need to in the mall. You could get a shirt, backpack, like whatever types of things you needed. Like if you blew out your fourth pair of underwear on the flow rider, like whatever you could go into port and grab. So that was super nice.
No, I mean, like you said, the clutch things we've talked about prepping for ships, and you can do it perfectly. But 7 months of wear on a drawstring bag, like the amount of times that you're halfway through the contract, you're cinching it up on the beach, and it just rips in half. And you're like, cool, now I'm tying everything in my towel. Next turnaround, I need to go find a new drawstring bag. Or the small things that you prep for, you're in, your toiletries bag or something, like, again, these things that get constant use. You're like, dude, I need to get off port and go get this clutch thing that I need for work because mine wore out.
Totally. So it was just life that you got there. But you also alluded to weather days. Weather days specifically when we were sports staff were awesome. So if it was raining or too windy or rocky or insert anything that made it weathery, or we will call acts of God moving forward, we had kind of two options that happened. You would have a cool manager that would say, "Hey man, just go like fuck off and do whatever. I'll call you. Just stay in your cabin." Or reach out to me with whatever you're doing, and we would just go do whatever. Or if there was one person that abused that power, we all had to sit in that tiny little locker room and kill time because the boss was like, "Hey bud, I'm not letting you guys go. You screwed this up last time. You can all thank Ivan."
Yeah.
Here's he sitting while we're sitting in here solving it in the locker room. And there's 20 people in this, like, really designed for maybe 10 max in this locker room just going.
Yeah.
Well, we solved a lot of problems in there and learned how to do a lot of wheelchair wheelies.
Yeah. Well, it's because, again, like, let's say Oasis class ships, I would say closed more rarely, because even the rock wall, when it's raining, is relatively covered. As long as there's no lightning, the flow rider's still operational, and people will ride in the rain. And if they're not, the sports staff are riding. Or, for the most part, when these things are closed during weather, you still have to man the desk, and you can't you can't just throw up a sign that says we're closed. Like, weather, we're closed. Like, it's blatantly obvious, but a lot of these activities required reservations, like the North Star, things like that, or iFly. And if the ship's moving too much or bad weather, it's like someone's sitting there telling guests we're closed and then trying to negotiate reservations, things like that. And like you said, the cool managers would be like, all right, figure out your own schedule, put someone on the desk every hour all day. I don't care if one person does it all day or you have one person per hour. But someone will be at the desk all day. Or like you said, if you get screwed, it's like, nope, full staff at everything because someone screwed it up. But those weather days were the ones where you're like, hey, I'm going to run down, go do my laundry. Or, hey, I'm going to go do an activity. Or I'm going to hit the gym while you're doing it. I'll come back, replace you, blah, blah, blah.
Or my favorite one time is I had a manager say to one employee, he goes, "You're sitting on the desk for the next 2 hours." And he goes, "Oh, why?" And he goes, "Do you really want to have that discussion in front of everyone?" And he goes, "Have fun, guys."
Yeah.
And so we all just came back 2 hours later.
Yeah. We would definitely utilize the weather. So on the Ovation out of Sydney, it's home port Sydney, and then it sails across the Tasman Sea and hits up the east coast of New Zealand. But you have to cross that Tasman Sea. And I think the record was like 21-foot waves. And on, storm season, it would average like 12. And those kind of waves crossing that kind of water, that boat was moving. So, we would literally put a bumper car in the middle of the sports court and just put it down, and all the guests are watching. And we go, "Hey guys," like on the microphone, you'd be like, "Hey guys, this thing weighs about 300 pounds, and the minimum age to ride is 3. So if this thing moves, we can't open." And the boat just starts listing, and that thing just slides across the floor and runs into the wall. And we go, "Now imagine your toddler's ankles in front of that thing. We're sorry, we're closed."
Just
like,
in it.
In
as it cracks against the wall.
Yeah. I mean, it is the bumper car, so that's not the one, but it was more like, again, people are like, "Yeah, but you're in the bumper car." You're like, "Yeah, but when you're not in the bumper car and you have 20 of these cars moving around, they are moving landmines that will break adults' ankles. So I'm really sorry, we're closed."
Yeah.
So they would close, and that's when we would utilize board games. And we would set up board games in the iFly Lounge or go down to the Crew Cafe. And it was like, because you'd wake up, windy.com, most phenomenal app when you manage all the widgets. And you'd literally look at it and just be like, 14-foot waves, we're probably closing. They'd start calling people around like, "You guys want to play Catan or Game of Thrones Risk? Like, let's do it." And you'd set up games, and like that was our downtime, was just chilling, playing games during that time.
Or we would go to like if we could leave, if you had a cool boss that would let you leave, we would go and play ping pong and have ping pong tournaments in the crew messes, because it's not like everybody doesn't work when there's bad weather. It's just specific areas that don't work that aren't outside because you have to remember how much the ship is insulated. So it's not like everybody has the time off at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Right.
We all would go and have a ping pong tournament down there or a pool tournament or darts or whatever. And that would always be such a good time. And you would play your game of ping pong, and then you run over and call your boss and be like, "Hey, do you need us yet?" And they're like, "No, you're good, man." You're like, "All right, cool. Can we play one more?" "Yeah, okay, cool."
Yeah.
And you put the phone down.
I'll call you back in 10 minutes. Like,
Then those were great. Those were great.
yeah, but I mean, that was, I think, kind of the last section of true chilling time where it's not partying, you've got your laundry done, you've got everything taken care of, and we would spend most of our time playing board games and setting up in the Crew Cafe.
You remember that one time it was raining and you and I were sitting there on the rock wall and the acro guys were training? And so there were guys out so in the show there was this one giant dude and a tiny little twig. And he held him up.
I mean,
they did all the different acrobat stuff of like handstands on his hands. He would lay back, all that type of fun stuff. And so it would be like raining or bad weather and the rock wall's closed. And Nagy and I looked down to them and we're like, "Hey, watch us." And we would point to them. And then Nagy and I would try to do some knockoff version of it. We're like, jump up and we could go, "Yay!" And they're like,
yeah,
"Hey!"
Chris on my shoulders. A chicken fight and like do 360s and some dance moves, and they're like, "Come on down, you guys can take our jobs." And we're like, "We got this. We got Rockwall. Sorry, maybe next time, bud. Maybe next time."
I remember specifically one time, me and my buddy, he was in the cast, and when he would warm up, they would be on that opposite rock wall, and so as it's kind of quieting down on a formal night, nobody comes to the rock wall. So I would just clip myself in on the auto belay and jump back and do all the tricks that he did in the show. And he would give me a rating like Caesar. He would stick his thumb out and then give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And then everybody that was like working doors or whatever would go, "Boo. Yeah."
Messing around during those times because, well, I only got in trouble a couple times for it, but yeah, we're closed because it's raining, and then we're out there playing on the ropes, and a guest's like, "Hey, are you open?" Like, "No." Like, "Oh, well, I just saw you climbing." Like, "Yeah, I was just seeing if it's slippery." "It is." Okay.
I was just tightening the holds, man. I was just...
Yeah, we're like swinging and bouncing around. They're like, "But you guys are like, no. This is all like doing flips. Like, this is all part of our safety procedure. Sorry, we're closed."
This is just training. Yeah, bud. That's what that is. Wait, he just swung 40 feet. What's training? Okay? Training. Back.
Yeah, if a guest did that, they'd probably be dead. So you're lucky he's there. He's a trained professional for this.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to cover in the day-to-day life episode?
I think that kind of covers it because, yeah, I mean, it's not all the crazy parties and constant activities. Sometimes there is just some really chill downtime where you're just going to relax and sort out your own business so you're ready for the next week and keeping on keeping. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, till next time, we'll see you.
Cheers.